Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Nona from thealliancelover.com. I have another hairstyle video for you today featuring a set of women with round, wide, or petite, shorter faces. I want to give you a selection of women with different features so that you can kind of figure out what features you have, place yourself on a spectrum, and this way you're not going to let one feature define you. I don't want you to think, oh, just because I have round cheekbones, I have to wear X kind of bangs in X kind of way. There's so much nuance and there's so much variety, so hopefully this video helps you figure out kind of the features of your own face, as well as how to choose and style bangs in a harmonious fashion. And by harmonious, I mean a kind of style that enhances the flow, the harmony, and the character of your face instead of overwhelming it or competing with it. All right, our first example is PURNELL. She has a very doll-like, super symmetrical, very polished, sculpted face. Now her cheekbones start off a little bit lower on her face. They get the widest around here, a little bit lower than the midline around the bottom of her ear. She has this very gentle slope from her cheekbones to her jaw. So, kind of pay attention to the shape of your own face, especially the outside edges and where your cheekbones originate. Are they kind of higher up near your ear, or are they starting a little bit lower on your face? We're going to be talking about variations on that, and I think the best ways to frame them. So if you're someone like Ella who has these cheekbones that aren't super angular, they're a bit more lush, a little bit more sloped, gently, and you have this really beautiful lower half of your face that's softly wide. What you don't want to do is hide the outer edge of your face. So there's just so much lovely, gentle, subtle contouring there. And if you hide it with too much, strands, too much layering in front, you're going to totally overwhelm the outside curve of your face. So especially anyone with more rounded as opposed to angular, sharp cheekbones, you want your bangs to really gently frame your face in soft sweeps instead of anything super harsh, because ultimately that is a feature that is present on your bone structure. People with more angular, sharper features tend to get away with more success in terms of pulling off very sharp, severe kinds of bangs. But if your face is, softer, rounder, consider very soft, gentle layers that frame the face. And a really great way to achieve that is with curtain bangs. Now, these two photos feature curtain bangs styled in very, very different ways. So someone like Ella, who has such a polished, precious, kind of doll-like face, looks better with a polished kind of hairstyle. This very voluminous, kind of edgy, wild hairstyle can be a little bit overwhelming. It can compete with her face. Plus, all of this volume up here and the lack of symmetry also adds to that effect where, because of the symmetry and the definition of her face, you really can see the very emphasized asymmetry and messiness in her hair, even if it's purposeful. So instead, what you want to do is choose a style that's a little bit smoother, more polished, with a lot less volume up here. If you have a lot more volume lower on the face, you don't want to try to balance it out with more volume up here. You want, again, beautiful, organic looking sweeps of hair that expose the face, but also frame it with kind of curves, instead of hiding your face with angles. You want to use the features that are on your face to frame your own face. On to two different examples here. Let's talk about the more obvious example. Again, the lack of symmetry is exaggerated because her face is so defined, so symmetrical. This is also a super edgy look, and you need to think about the rest of your hair. Is your hair going to match your bangs? Is it one cohesive style, or is it bangs and then some other hairstyle? So with this look, she has these baby doll bangs, but it doesn't really link to the rest of her hair. So there's just a lot of contrast there, and it's taking away from her look as a cohesive, whole. Now here, very cohesive look. The hair, all of it is one style. It's soft and smooth and very, very polished, but it also exposes the beautiful outside of her face. She's not trying to hide her face. She's not trying to use anything too angular or sharp or severe to bring more definition to her face. Also, take note of the quality of your bangs. Think about how thin, how much volume you want on them, and if that's going to really bring out your own facial features. If you go too heavy, that can overwhelm you, but here is a perfect example of like a perfect kind of thickness in terms of curtain bangs. They're not so heavy that you can't see through them, but they're not so thin that you can pick out just individual strands of hair. All right, so our next example is Jenna Coleman. Again, she has this very doll-like, very symmetrical quality to her face. So she's gonna look better in things that are a little bit more polished. But if you make your look mostly polished and smooth, then you can use messiness or a little bit of tousling as a bit of spice, but it can't be the foundation of your look because it's going to overwhelm these very delicate features. Now, another factor that's very important is hair color. If you want bangs, but you have highlights or different colors in your hair, low lights, or your roots are exposed, that is going to change the way that the bangs look on your face. So it's going to look a little bit more separated from the rest of your hair if your roots are exposed, because the bangs are always a little bit more exaggerated and you can really see it falling flat on your forehead. So your roots are going to be exaggerated. If they're a little bit more faded towards the ends, then the look has to overall support that. So if you want, lighter ends of your hair and you want bangs, consider something softer, look to, like Stevie Nicks, or those kind of 60s, 70s curtain bangs and their kind of sun bleached hair. Don't go for something that needs to be very, very polished, straight, or very precise. Okay, with these two photos, I want to talk about the relative heaviness of your bangs again. So here we have kind of similar cut in both these photos, but here her bangs look a little bit lighter than here, and then we're also getting a little bit of volume up here on either side. A little messiness is very cute. But here, the bangs look a little bit heavy. There's more volume on the bangs than the rest of the hair. You want to kind of avoid that. You don't want your bangs to be the biggest part of your hair. Even if you're putting your hair up, think of Brigitte Bardot when she would put her hair up, even in that half do, she'd have very big fluffy bangs, but then she'd also have, big fluffy half up hair. So think about how the volume is distributed along your hair, along your bangs, and the rest of your hair. You don't want anything too, high contrast that will make it look like separate hairstyles. All right, so now we have Ana de Armas. She has very full cheeks. That's why I included her. If you have very full cheeks, you don't need like a short face, but these full cheeks. And if you look at her features, she has more blunt features than I would say the smooth, very delicate features of Ella and of Jenna, who we just looked at. So if your face is a little less delicate, you can play around with more wispy bangs, a little bit more edginess, because you don't have that, super symmetrical doll-like look that kind of dominates, your style or your appearance. So with Anna, yes, she is very cute and adorable, but her features are less like precious, less fragile and delicate, and less like tiny and sculpted. That's what I mean. More blunt, if you're familiar with like chibi features. So anyways, what I want to point out with these two hairstyles is first how exposed that outside of her face is. So here, with these layers up front, you're getting a lot of, hiding. It looks like she's hiding her face. It doesn't really look like these strands are framing her face. It looks like it's obscuring her face. So again, if you have wider cheekbones and your cheekbones are not super high and set back, which I'll show you examples of shortly, try not to hide too much of your face. You want to expose this section, especially if you are going to play with more volume like she is here. So she has a little bit more volume up here. You can play with more volume if you have a little bit more swoosh or swoop to your face, but if you're kind of creating these inwards or flatter layers, it's going to exaggerate anything opposite. So the volume up here, so just be mindful of that. Okay, so for these two photos of Anna, I think she looks really cute in both, but I think one is good and the other one is better. And I think this one is better because it just looks a little bit more harmonious in terms of how it interacts with her face, just a lot more softness, more swooping, less sharpness. And with this one, you get, a bit more sharpness in the shape of the bangs. And again, you have those layers that kind of, obscure the shape of her face a little bit. Not too much because she has her hair back. You can see the sides of her face, but just a little bit so that, it doesn't look as flattering, in my opinion, as this look here. She looks super fresh. You can really see the beauty of her entire face beyond her forehead. Just looks more fresh and open. Here, this is a very kind of doll-like, more delicate look. Again, it looks good and it really fits her outfit, but think about your style, think about how you really want to present yourself. Again, these are just factors to consider. A style may look good on you, but does it fit your personality? All right, next up we have Zendaya, and here I wanted to talk about kind of the thickness and the softness of bangs. Here you have a little bit more hair up front, and the bangs, the hairs are a little softer. They kind of flow into each other. Here you have a very thin set of bangs, and you can see each individual strand of hair. So if you have a softer face like Zendaya, she has, softer, rounder bones, not super sharp. It's a lot of contrast when you put a very kind of edgy, thinner set of bangs on your face. So if you're going for that contrast and you really love it, great. But if you don't and you want a style of bangs that looks more soft, it looks more incorporated with the rest of your hairstyle, then consider adding a little bit more hair and not going for such a strongly defined look. Okay, next up we have Rashida Jones. She has so many hairstyles. It's so fun to look at all of her hairstyles. So let's just talk about her facial shape really quickly. She has very wide cheekbones, and they kind of originate and are at their widest along the tops of her ears. So what happens is, usually if you have this kind of facial shape, you have a little bit longer of a visual path from your cheekbones that start off higher and then down to your jaw and to your chin most of the time, unless, your jaw is a little bit wider as well. But if you have these higher set cheekbones and, moderate tapering of your face, you might consider some of her own styles. So in my experience, if you have a facial shape like this, you can get away with a bit more hair on the sides of your cheekbones because you still have, all of this visual path. That's a reference point, so it doesn't look like you're hiding your face. There's enough shaping, there's enough contour that you can kind of move in a little and hide, the widest part of your face, and it won't look like you're being constrained by your hairstyle. But you can also totally show it off, and that tends to look the best with a bit of volume, a bit of swoop, like with this hairstyle. She has really cute swept bangs, really lovely curls here, and yes, you can see the width of her face. Really lovely. You can see the total outline of her hair. Here, again, the swoop is really lovely, and it's a little tousled, it's a little messy. It doesn't look too heavy. What you don't want to do if you have this face shape is just cut straight, or like kind of like a bowl cut here, and then you're putting a very kind of harsh definition here, and that's going to be exaggerating the width of your face. So what's going to happen is this part of your face is going to be put on display, very emphasized, and what can happen is you get too much contrast between this, and then it looks a little too wide, and you can end up looking like you have a bowl cut. So kind of an example is this one where, it's just a little bit too straight and she just didn't put enough direction into her bangs. So it's a very harsh kind of line that is created. Plus, it doesn't look very integrated into the rest of her hair. But here, super duper cute. I love this hairstyle so much. I would get it myself, actually. Bangs are great thickness, great pieciness without being overwhelming because they're thick enough. So if you get piecey bangs that are too thin, they can look a little stringy and underwhelming. So just note that as well. And we're seeing the lovely contours of your face. Really great look. Okay, so let's talk more about cheekbones with this look from LANA CONDOR. I think these bangs are really cute on her, except I wish you just cut them a little more to expose more of her face, because here, these layers right besides her eyes are hiding the beautiful contours of her cheeks. Now you can see the lovely contour and fullness of your cheeks here when they're exposed, but they're still framed by these kind of like short side sweeps here. So, don't try to hide your face or try to slim it or try to frame your face in very angular ways if your face is very rounded where your bangs are going to be cut. So here, where her bangs are kind of ending and her hair is framing her face a little bit more vertically, she's super contoured, she's super rounded. There's a lot of curve there, so she's kind of, canceling out that curve, and it's such a lovely feature. So just take note of that. Think about how much you want to cut, how much you want to go in closer on the face. Alright, next example is Felicity Jones. Here I just want to talk about volume and keeping it a little bit more consistent. So here, you know, great spread of volume and tousling all throughout. Here, this side looks a little bit heavy. You can see there's a lot of volume up here, and it's kind of taking over the shape of your hairstyle. The good news is that if you do this, you can just easily fix it. Just put this little portion on this side instead of, you know, kind of adding more to where it's already heavy. Just put this little bit up here that can be a little voluminous and just put it on the other side, or, you know, brush it backwards. And then it looks a little bit, you know, more harmonious. For these photos, I want to talk about her facial features. She's very light, delicate, kind of like airy features. So she looks better with lighter bangs that have more movement to them. Here, these curtain bangs are a little bit heavy. I think these kind of more solid bangs look great on someone like Zooey Deschanel, who has a bit more solidity and heaviness to her features. So just try to think about how light or heavy or solid your features look. Okay, so that's it for this video. There's so many factors to consider, but just try to reflect on your own features and see what you want to frame. See if your hairstyle is, you know, harmonious with your personality and your wardrobe as well. And just careful how you style it. The way that you know, even dry or brush your bangs can make a big difference. So in the next video, I'll do a different set of facial shapes or features. Bye.